I played the Darkhaven demo, and this is what I think about it. For those of you who don't know, Darkhaven is a next-generation ARPG brought to you by many of the original creators of Diablo and Diablo 2. For this particular demo, they decided to give us one character class with 6 available skills in 3 separate skill trees. There is also one world event that can be triggered by following the main quest line, and when the event is triggered, it will totally transform your world over time until you stop it. The good thing about this is that you don't have to trigger this until you're ready, but both of the times when I was playing the game with 2 different characters, I triggered it immediately, so yeah, I had to kinda deal with that, but that's okay. So what is Moonbeast Production trying to do with this thing? If you go to their Kickstarter page, this is what they're basically saying. They want a procedurally generated, a living, dynamic world. They want to introduce open world navigation with you jumping, swimming, climbing, and even gliding. Then there is dynamic combat, total mayhem in the sense that you can destroy everything. And then you have epic world-altering events when stuff gets out of control and map kinda gets transformed into this Necropolis thing. You can do mining and digging. You can construct and build stuff. They're also promising incredible itemization, created by the principal designers of Diablo 1 and 2. Day and night cycles, runes and hearts, crafting, multi-classing, secure multiplayer, and finally, infinite modding. Naturally, when you start playing the demo, you won't see most of these things. This is basically what they want to do. And not to mention, this is a pre-alpha state, so, you get a very, very early sneak preview kind of a thing in order to check out, I suppose, the potential what this game could grow into, given time and necessary backing. So what I'm going to do here, I'll probably take these things that they have written on their Kickstarter page into consideration, but I will also give my opinion based on the 6.5 hours that I spent in the game. When they are talking about procedurally generated world, they don't really want to see a static set pieces popular in the genre today. Which means that no 2 worlds are alike, giving the game sort of a infinite replayability and discovery. Considering that I already made 2 characters, I experienced this firsthand, and to be honest, it's not a bad thing. Usually when you play stuff like Path of Exile or Diablo or any modern, current ARPG, you already know where you need to go, sort of. Everything is kinda predefined. Especially if you take Diablo 4 into consideration, given the overworld or the open world of that game, which is always static no matter what you do. So in this sense, in my opinion, this is a breath of fresh air. Then there is open world navigation where you can jump, swim, climb, and glide, and again, this is actually pretty cool. I was doing all these things while I was exploring. Obviously, it felt a bit janky because, again, game is in pre-alpha state, so let's kinda remove ourselves from that particular thing and see the potential in the game. That's basically going to be the theme song of this, I suppose, first impression. I like the idea that I can freely explore everything, and essentially this gives you a lot of freedom, something that you don't see in other open world ARPGs or any type of ARPG. And if they can kinda nail it in a way that's smooth and it feels organic, I don't see this as a problem. Obviously, when I was playing the game, it was kinda, awkward when you were swimming and stuff is attacking you, but there are ways to negate that with, for example, walk on the water enchantment on your boots. Or water walking. I don't even say why I said walk on the water, but there you have it. Now, combat is always the most important thing in any ARPG, and this is basically where the game is going to either fail or succeed, in my opinion. You can always change itemization, but at the end of the day, when you fix the combat in a certain position that you want, that's basically it. In that sense, based on what we had, or rather what I had, which is 1 class, 6 abilities, and basically that's about it, combat seemed kinda underwhelming a bit. I didn't expect much, to be honest, especially considering this is a pre-alpha state, but as I was playing the game, it kinda felt like my character was underpowered and certain abilities were much better than the other ones. For example, there is this ability where you can summon a bunch of crows, but in order to activate it, you kinda need to hold shift and attack button, which is left mouse button, so you can unleash it. And sometimes it kinda worked, sometimes it didn't. but more importantly, it required a lot of steps in order to get that ability to fully project the damage that you had in mind. However, when I played the second character and there was this ability where you sort of use the scorpion attack from Mortal Kombat, which means that you latch onto the enemies and pull them towards you, that didn't have that secondary attack and it felt much, I would say, natural to me. So already I can see a problem where you are giving me a couple of, let's say, alternatives, but at the end of the day, I'm just going to use this one because it's much better and it does more damage and it has more utility and all that good stuff. I am a huge proponent of having all builds viable no matter what you have. And if I'm going to choose between 3 abilities, whereby only one is kinda suitable for what I want to do, then in my opinion that's not a great thing. And it's not even about what I want to do, it's all about how the ability is going to project itself on the environment and the enemies in order for me to achieve what I really want, and that's basically kill a bunch of stuff. Also, I would point out that the shadow abilities that I use, specifically the crow one, you couldn't really generate mana with it. In fact, you couldn't generate mana at all with it. While the basic blood ability, the scorpion thing one, you could actually do that. On top of that, you could modify the scorpion attack in order for you to generate health with every attack. So pretty much what I'm trying to say here is I don't mind using all 3 basic abilities, but if the situation is going to be that one ability is better only because it does more damage and the rest of them are just a passable thing, and judging from what I can see, they kinda already did that, and that's a bit worrisome, simply because I either wanna use abilities based on role-playing reasons, or because they look cool. But at the end of the day, it's all about whatever dishes more damage, and that's basically it. And I've seen this so many times where basic ability or whichever ability looks very cool and kinda vibes with me, but gets ignored because it doesn't do a lot of damage, and I don't wanna see the same thing here, especially if they are saying that they wanna do something revolutionary, something that hasn't been done before, that sort of thing. And that's why I'm kinda sort of ranting about this particular situation. And I know it's pre-alpha and all that stuff, and things might change because it's a, ever-changing process with game development. But I still felt it was not okay, so to speak, so that's why I'm pointing this out, in hopes that in the future this is going to be, I suppose, fixed. And yeah, I know it's hard to balance around all skills and all that stuff, but at least there should be an effort. If the skill itself isn't doing a lot of stuff, or rather is not dishing a lot of damage, then maybe through some kind of a modifiers you can enhance it and then everybody's kinda happy. It seems to me that the main aspect of this particular game is all about destruction. Destroy everything. No more following a looping passage only to be blocked by an inconveniently placed wall. Which basically means that you can destroy everything inside the dungeon and, just blast. There is a problem with this thing. In my opinion, while on paper destroying your environment is cool, there are several issues that I have encountered. First issue is that while you are fighting enemies and making craters and all that stuff with your amazing abilities, you are essentially blocking or trapping yourself in that particular crater, and I don't think anybody wants that, to be quite honest with you. Yes, you can jump out of it and you can do all kinds of stuff, but it's annoying, particularly since the pathing wasn't that great. And it works the other way around. If you make a crater while the enemies are there, you cannot really attack them, or at least I couldn't, unless I came to the same level that they were placed, so to speak, based on what I, created by destroying the environment. And to me, that again kinda breaks the general flow of combat. It's not a big of a deal, but at the same time it is, if you know what I mean. The bigger problem that I have is when I was doing the dungeons. What I mean by this is every single time I wanted to progress through a dungeon, I had to destroy a wall. Pretty much the gameplay loop was like this. Go inside the dungeon, explore whatever you can, as in you kinda scout the whole room that you're currently placed in and then loot everything, and then go break a wall. Then there is a corridor, go break a wall. Then there is another room, go break a wall. Instead of me blasting through the dungeon continuously, I always had to stop in order to destroy the wall. It reminded me of Diablo 4 situation with doors. Every single time if you wanna go to another room, and there is a bunch of door, you gotta open them and then you can go inside and then rinse and repeat. And that basically breaks the whole flow of combat if you wanna just, speed through it while obliterating everything in your vicinity. And I think this is a problem, especially because I don't really know which walls are destructible and which are kinda permanently there, because obviously they have to be placed in a way that, you cannot go outside the borders of the dungeon itself. And this particular situation is actually making me doubt this whole destroy everything doctrine, so to speak. Because what I noticed when I was playing, it was never a positive feature, it was always a feature that had a negative outcome. Like I said, it's nice on paper, but when you start doing it, it's a problem. So in general, I would say the terrain manipulation is questionable, and at least in dungeons, I would try, or rather, I would want to see a system where it's clearly indicated that I can break the wall that leads to another room, preferably not using my spells or skills, but having some kind of a, utility skill that's always on the bar, and then you click on it, and then your character breaks that particular barrier and moves forward. But then we come back to the same issue that I described, which is, I'm being soft-gated in terms of progressing effortlessly through the dungeon. Also, I would like to point out that in one of the dungeons there was like a lava pool, and then enemies attacked me and I had to use my big ability. And obviously I disturbed the ground, the whole terrain, and then lava started pouring everywhere. I mean, I could have been mindful of my surroundings and all that good stuff, but when you are fighting things, you don't really think about what the terrain is doing, or at least that's how we have been conditioned with the previous ARPG games. So yeah, to conclude and stop babbling about this situation, I would say that this is a questionable thing. I could see the appeal from a certain point of view, but from another point of view, it feels like it's doing more damage than it's actually producing positive effects. One thing that I liked about this game is this whole Necropolis thing. You start that event and then the whole map is kinda engulfed into darkness, and I believe this is a great concept, but it would have been nice if the game actually introduced this a bit later, with some kind of a disclaimer or warning, like if you do this you are completely screwed, and then if the map was generated in a way where the darkness can easily engulf the areas that you wanna visit later, well, you're kinda screwed. So in my 2 playthroughs, the first map was heavily affected by that particular event, and the main NPC, I think his name is Loom, he actually teleported his camp several times. While in the second playthrough, I basically was okay because the Necropolis starting point was somewhere at the edges of the map, so by the time they actually started posing a threat to me, I was pretty much okay. Also, I am curious, if you defeat the Necropolis, so to speak, do the elements on the map come back online, like the waypoints, or they are permanently lost? Also, is there any way to stop it by building a wall or putting some guards or whatever? I don't know, maybe some kind of a trench around your camp? I don't really know. And it's interesting because it says on the Kickstarter page that it's your choice to stop it or to join it. So that's actually an interesting concept, because more often than not you cannot play a bad character. You're always playing a hero, a good guy saving the world, but here, you could kind of twist the situation in a different way and you're now the baddie. Interesting concept. We'll see what is going to happen in the future. Now, itemization as is, I don't really know what they're going to do, because the time I had with the game, I couldn't really figure out if it's any good or bad. From the get-go, I was always fishing for gold items or yellow items, because apparently, or at least as far as I can see, they are the best. I wasn't able to find any uniques along the way, and that would be great, so I reckon they should have maybe increased the drop chances for these items so we can test them and see how they're doing, especially for the uniques, considering they might have special effects or they can alter powers in a certain way. So, I don't know. Itemization is designed based on Diablo 1 and Diablo 2, so if you like it in that way, I don't think you're gonna have an issue with this. But they are saying that no level scaling and items that are just stack sticks, and every tier has its purpose, which means that you can even use white items to be basis for your build. I kinda doubt that, but I am willing to, change my opinion based on the future evidence that I'm exposed to. But at the end of the day, what I could have seen with itemization, I was always ditching white stuff in favor for the yellow stuff. There are other elements that I have seen which are kinda okay, for example runes and hearts. Runes can be used to modify your skills or socketed into items to create rune words. And for witch class, they can even slot themselves on her body to create tattoos that modifies her build, which is amazing. I had this one rune which I socketed into the witch, and my basic attack was also rooting enemies, which was great because I was desperate for any kind of crowd control. So it's a system that we've seen many times with kinda different clothes on, so to speak, so nothing fancy there. And that's basically it what I've seen in this particular demo, or at least what I have heavily interacted with. There is an option to make stuff, like I was making walls for lols and something along the lines, but at the end of the day that's not ARPG for me. I'm not there to create stuff, to make stuff, I'm usually there to kill stuff and destroy stuff. I don't know how that building system is going to fit into the game itself. Maybe it's just for modding purposes or, creating your own areas, quests, whatever. But as far as I'm concerned, this is basically not for me in terms of me engaging in that system heavily. So to conclude, Darkhaven has potential, but I haven't seen enough for me to say that I definitely want to play this game when it comes out, mainly because the pre-alpha was so, I would say, feature deprived. Not to mention there was a lot of jankiness, a lot of stuttering, all the technical issues that you might experience when you're trying a build that's very, very basic, so to speak. I understand why they released it, because they need backing, or at least that's the general idea. But at the same time, I'm kinda cautious when it comes to, attaching myself to certain games that are in a very early stage. With all that being said, I really wish them the best, and I really think that they have pure intentions in making an amazing ARPG with stuff that hasn't been seen before. And I will definitely check them out when the game comes in much more stable version, probably some kind of a beta or something like that. And that's it from me, until the next one.